Hello and welcome to the 1/106th of a second photography podcast. We must be in episode 80 now. No, not episode 80, episode 180. Wow. I knew I'd be doing it for a long time, but 180 episodes, I'm really pleased with myself. I'm really proud of myself. Anyway, enough of self-congratulating myself. I'm going to talk today about cliches. Now, in the last episode, I was talking about casting models, and I've looked at a lot of model portfolios who replied to my castings. I'll essentially sum up last week. I want to go out and do some shoots with models. I'm really confident in the weather. I'm still being socially distanced, so I'm thinking outdoor shoots in September, natural light, I can do it, and using telephoto lenses and portrait lenses, I'll be fine and I can be far away from people. Happy days, I'm happy. Get some shoots in before the winter when can't really do that, and that's that. And it's not rained, it's not been bad weather, so I'm confident I'm going to go for it. So I've had lots and lots of applications, lots of people who have written messages and applied for my castings. I talked about it last week, and I talked about what I think people don't realise is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for reliability over anything else. But when I've been, so again, I'll summarise. I look at the references, I look at where someone's based, I look at how quickly they reply to things, and I'm trying to get a picture of how reliable they are. And then I start to look at their look, how they dress, how their makeup is. I always find those things secondary, because you could have the best looking model in the world who's got the most experience, and you don't need a makeup artist for it because they do an incredible job with their makeup. But it's no good if they don't turn up, or it's no good if they're 2 hours late, or it's no good if they turn up then they say they've got to go after half an hour. I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. So I've been looking at lots of model portfolios, and the last thing I look at is the images. And one model in particular, I'm not going to say who it is, I can't really remember. I looked at their portfolio and I thought, oh, this is all a bit cliche. And it's no slight on them, but it did make me think, aha, here's a good podcast episode here talking about what is now cliche. Because with photo shoots, things are in fashion, there are trends, and then of course they go out of fashion. And I sort of think what people were shooting maybe a couple of years ago has now totally gone out of fashion, or to me it feels old and it feels cliche. And I'm going to talk about that today. So in no particular order, milk baths, I think, are cliche. And what makes something cliche is when everyone does it. If a couple of people do it, it's new. When everyone's done it, it's cliche. Now, I've never done a milk bath. I'm not interested in putting someone in a bath of milk and putting some flowers in, or putting them in water, adding some milk so that it's opaque rather than transparent, and then putting some flowers or some food colouring in. I'm not interested. Wouldn't do it. Don't want it. No. And I think it looks really cliche, and I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but yeah, I think it's cliche. The other cliche thing is smoke bombs. Now, I can see why people do smoke bombs. They go out to a forest, they want a bit of colour, they want something different, they're away from everyone, so they set off some smoke bombs which give out fumes of purple or green or red smoke, and it just gives something interesting in the background. But it's been done so much that I think it's cliche. Now, what I do not think is cliche is fog. I think fog is great, and I have a fog machine myself, not one specifically for photography, just a general one. It was a £30 one on Amazon, and I bought some fogging agent. Now, what fog does is fog allows you to give atmosphere. So you can use fog on film sets, you can use fog outside, you can use fog in your photo shoots, and fog allows you to see light that you can't normally see. So if you were doing like a film noir thing, you might have light coming in through blinds. And if that light, you wouldn't actually have blinds up, you would make a gobo and you have a piece of black card, you cut slits in it, and you'd fire a light through it, maybe a flash, maybe a continuous light, and the light would hit the wall and it would look, there's a street light outside and there are blinds and that's what we can see. But you can only see it if it hits the wall. You can only see that light if it hits the wall or if it hits something. So adding fog allows you to see the travel or the path of light. So if you go to I was going to say a disco, a nightclub, and there are lasers, you won't see the lasers unless they have something to collide with. So fog is put into the air or smoke is put into the air, and then you can see the lasers because the light will reflect off the particles as the laser travels through it. It's a terrible explanation, but that's what happens. So I don't think fog is cliche. I think fog has its uses, and I think fog is different from smoke bombs, but that's just me. I also think sort of a sunset image can also be deemed a little bit cliche. Or those black and white images where the shadows have been lifted a bit and you put sort of S-curve on. Now, I think what probably the current trend is, and I'm going to be guilty of this because I'm going to do this, is making your portrait shots smartphone based. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean sort of Instagramming it. So typically you would take your portraits and your fashion shoots with a long lens. A variety of reasons for that. It makes the model look slimmer. It can blur the background out and it can give a good bokeh. But because everyone's so used to seeing things on smartphones, and for some people who take photos, that's all they have, the angle of the lens is wider. So now we're starting to see portraits being taken with a 35mm and a 28mm. Nothing extreme like a 24 or a 16, but 35 or 28 is what we're starting to see. And I think that's going to be a trend for a long time, and that's only going to become more of a trend and more commonplace. But will it become a cliche? I don't know. Now, when I go out and I'm going to do my portrait shoots, I'm going to take my street photography camera, my Ricoh GR with me. I'm going to take some other cameras as well, but I'm going to take a Ricoh GR. I did a really good shoot with a DxO1, which is that little module that you put onto the iPhone, only on iPhone. And I also took an RX100, just those two cameras. And I got really, really good images of this portrait shoot I did in an urban environment. So I'm going to use my Ricoh GR, I'm going to use highlight priority, I'm going to get some really interesting things. I'm going to have people stood in shards of light, things like that. But I do worry that maybe at some point I'll think that's cliche. Anyway, I've talked about what I think is a cliche image. I've talked about what I think may become a cliche image. Do let me know what you think. Is it okay to shoot cliche images? Do you even realise you're doing it? Do let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.